Hi, David. Thanks so much for joining us
Thank you.
today. How have you been enjoying Cannes?
Of course. It's obviously a great place to be.
Great. Could you tell me a little bit about your role at Hush and just kind of a little bit of background with the company, agency?
Sure. So I am one of the founding partners. There's my partner and myself founded it about 9 years ago. My role is very outward focused. So I'm usually in the very front end of conversations with C-level brand management, really understanding what their hopes and dreams are, what their struggles are, and how we can potentially use our design talent to answer some of those questions or deliver on some of their promises.
Great. So how would you define success in your role?
Success for me, there's obviously like a business growth piece of that. Like if I'm doing my job well, our company's growing. But success for our clients, I feel like if we're open and transparent, if I'm able to help facilitate that dialogue, so we get to a level of trust and transparency, that is a win for everybody, right? So it's it's psychological on some level. It's trying to know a little about a lot so that I can kind of bring initial insights or ideas to the table and have like a real-time discussion, right? I mean, for those people, their time is the most precious asset. So I'm not there telling about what we could do later. I'm talking about real-time, how we might approach things and how we can answer some of their questions. If I can do that, that usually unlocks an opportunity that we can actually do the right process and work together.
So how do you facilitate a company that can kind of have this trust and transparency as key tenets?
How do we facilitate our company to behave like that, or how to work? Well, honesty, saying no, kind of calling it as we see it is really important. I think there's always that dynamic where if it's not a right fit or our point of views aren't aligned, you know that, and that's something that you need to address. So I think we're pretty open and honest about what we do and what we do well and what we do okay. And I think because of that honesty, when the time is right, we're hired to do the right type of projects and very innovation-led. And if we all handshake on it, it really works.
Cool. So how would you define strategy as it relates to a CMO?
To a CMO, okay. So from a marketing perspective, strategy is very, I think, complex and complicated. I think what happens in the CMO's mind is a lot about a complex ecosystem of things that they could do or not do, and the timing and relationship of those things. And I think that's probably the CMO's biggest hurdle. Now, as a company, we probably only answer a subset of all those possibilities. I mean, what we do well is a subset of all those options. So I think strategy becomes about choice and timing for a CMO, and the most kind of value. And I think that's a really complex ecosystem. I don't envy the CMO at all.
Yeah.
Also, there's a pressure with the marketing cycle that is, I think, ever present, and I think is somewhat a devil on the CMO's shoulder in terms of forcing action and need and requirement and feedback and success in a cadence that may actually, you have to deliver to the market at a certain cadence, but I don't know if it's in the grander benefit of the brand in which they work.
So how does that differ then from how a CEO would define strategy?
Okay, got it. So I think a CEO is able to look in a different way at business goals that are intrinsically linked to the marketing efforts, but are fundamentally affected by several other things, right? So I think the more the CEO sees a linkage between what the CMO is doing and the value of what they're bringing, I think the stronger, obviously, the business is. So I don't know, in the rooms I've been fortunate to be in where those two people are sitting side by side and we're talking about work, I think you definitely see a business goal first and foremost from a CEO, and you see a sort of marketing engagement goal first and foremost from the CMO. But at the end of the day, I don't think that's so far away from each other.
Yeah.
Obviously, the CEO has to deal with a lot of other infrastructure pieces of the business. There's operational pieces, there's finance pieces, there's sales and business development pieces. I think it's a broader title, quite frankly, but I don't think they need to be working hand in hand.
Yep. So being here at Cannes and kind of reflecting on the past year or two, how many years have you come to Cannes?
This is probably not consecutively, but probably my 6th or 7th year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And the company's changed like 5 times over that arc.
Yep.
So my relationship to Cannes has been much different, year after year, which is interesting. So as the festival has changed, so has my interest in it or role in the ecosystem.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool.
Can you speak to those changes a little bit more specifically?
Sure. I mean, we've moved, our relationships in the world have changed a lot in terms of who our clients are and kind of the work we're doing. And so now that, Fortune 500, 1,000 brands are our core clients, this is a very interesting place to be. That being said, we're a boutique agency doing a very kind of specific design-driven kind of work. And that's probably 5% of what's going on out there. So it's niche within niche, right? And then of the brands we work with some of the best in the world, but there are a lot of other people out there who work with them at scale, right? At a huge scale. So this ecosystem at Cannes is interesting to me because I get some time with my clients and some great FaceTime and good discussions, but there's a huge push from other companies that service those brands that is almost like unparalleled. So I'm lucky to have some intimate dialogues here with people that matter to me.
Yeah. So how have you seen the creative space changing in the last 12 months or the past year?
Creative space in general, not just at Cannes. Well, I mean, I think we can't ignore the incredible pressure of technology and venture capital on just creativity in general, right? So I think those two worlds, creative, pure design, pure artistry, and tech and capital coming together, I actually think is like the holy grail. And I think there's just so much opportunity there because the tech and VC companies, the desire to move so quickly is built into the entrepreneurial spirit, and creativity can feed off of that a lot. And I think more than ever, if you look at the hottest tech companies or startups out there, I think the value system they place on creativity and design is probably way higher than it was 10 years ago, even obviously 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago. There's no interesting, successful business or product coming to market now that devalues design. Even if there's room for improvement in a lot of places, I think there's still a consumer affiliation with design and creative that wasn't there a decade ago in the same way. I think we've seen when products work really well, we've seen when businesses express themselves very designed ways or creative ways, we see the result of that. So that's sort of like, I think it's an amazing thing to see come together. Yeah.
Do you feel that creative always, in today's age, needs to be measurable with such a focus on data and results?
Yeah, this one's a hot question. So I used to naively and just for the hell of it say, hell no, that's not what we're in for. But that was just more for like shock value. I think on one hand, what we make, there's a certain emotional spirit we're trying to capture that is really hard. The same thing you would feel if you walk into the Sistine Chapel or an amazing piece of architecture, or delve into amazing digital space that you're just immersed in some kind of amazing story or content or whatever. There's these same kind of like emotional things that happen. You're just all encompassed. You're just consumed. That's really hard to quantify in itself. It's easy to quantify perhaps the action that engenders. So it's more like what's the stimulus and what's the response. And we're after capturing the emotion, the moment where it feels right, or the message is right, or it just feels like the right thing, the right statement, the right space for a brand. We're less concerned about tracking the clicks that result from that, or the hits, or the views. We're more interested in focusing on that core emotional piece, kind of knowing just from our experience that if you do that really well, the halo effect of action comes. I always make the analogy to like an architect, right? Like Zaha Hadid doesn't build an amazing building and then sit there with a counter counting how many people show up to go.
It's not the result. So what do you find motivates them kind of on that line to getting to that ultimate goal?
Motivates the employee? I think employees are part of a culture and a company, but they're also autonomous beings, right? So you have this company that has vision and goals and work that we do, but then everyone is, should be selfish to some point, right? Mm-hmm. You want to be better in your position, your career, you want to further yourself and get more opportunity. So I think the earlier you set the foundation of what we're going to be doing, the more they can align with that or not, or say like, I like this piece of it, I don't like this piece of it, how can I be better within this piece? And if that aligns with what we need, then we should facilitate that as much as possible. Again, I think it's transparency, and it's absolutely not easy because day to day there's so many things going on, and you simply just can't disseminate the scope of information and choice that's happening at any given time. But I think there's a reasonable rhythm and trust you can build if you're constantly communicating and being open.
Can you describe the attributes of your best performer?
Yes. Someone who is very driven to accomplish more. So it's just like whatever they do now, they want to do 10% more of that at a higher level, at a higher scale. They're somewhat competitive, and not to the fault of anyone else or to the detriment of anyone else, but they're competitive with their own self. But at the same time, they're absolutely egoless, which is like a super key piece of DNA we look for in our hires, right? So, which is in the creative world is absolutely almost unheard of.
Yeah.
So, everyone has a natural ego that creates a drive and like I want to do better and I want to put my stamp on something, but we have this mentality where it's not a democracy, but it's definitely like the best idea wins, the best solution wins, and I think that sometimes means sitting in a group after you've toiled and toiled for days and days and days and nights, and realize that even after all that effort, someone else had a better solution for the thing, and then if you can give your idea away and you can say that was cool, like let's help support this, that's critical. Imagine the detriment to the project if someone just wasn't able to kind of free themselves from the work they had done to get to X and then turn it over to support someone else's idea.
Yeah.
So egoless creativity, really hard, but that comes from the top down, like for sure. I've seen every one of our management, our creative director, just look at an idea that's way better than the idea they came up with and say, let's go that way. That's what we have to do. And there's no, just keep moving. And you know it. You know when it's right and you know when it's yours. And you have a little emotional breakup, but then you move on and you're like, let's go. So
kind of speaking to this whole ideas and solution, what's the difference between an idea and a solution to you?
That's a great one. Well, I'll twist it a little bit in that I often say that for the senior folks at our company, the difference between cool and valuable. So I don't know, that's kind of parallel. Idea and solution is kind of the same. I think as you get more mature and you've kind of been in the conversations and you kind of see how ththings work and what has potential and you have a little bit more savvy to see the trees in the forest kind of simultaneously. And I think idea and solution is sort of this weird, there's a lot of great ideas, but not all of them are solutions.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot of great solutions and all of them are ideas. So it's called a one-way street. And so in a lot of my role, it's separating the cool ideas from the valuable ideas, or ideas from the actual solution, the ones with potential solutions.
Absolutely. Well, I don't want to take up any more of your time. Thanks so much for sitting down, and I hope you enjoy the festival.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks.
Cheers.